last video for today, I wanted to introduce some of the clamps that are in the shop, just because we use clamps with the drill press, and we're going to use some clamps when we start assembling our project. These things are super useful. We use them like every single day in here when we're actually working through projects. All right, so I have 4 clamps today that I want to introduce. I'm going to talk about what they're called, how they work, maybe some situations. All right, the first one I already kind of showed you guys. It's just this pressure clamp. All right, they're really nice. They've got these little rubber tips on them so that when we put them on wood, it doesn't like indent the wood or leave any marks. Now I have some that don't have that. So generally we wouldn't use these on projects. They're more for just like quickly holding things. All right, over here on the drill press, I use them to quickly hold my part onto the table. The way it works is you just squeeze them to open them and release to close it. All right, there's probably 5 or 6 of these laying around the shop, and they're really for just quickly grabbing onto something to hold it together. We wouldn't use this with glue to hold a piece just because it's too small. Right, so this is just for quick things. Sometimes I use them to set up fences on the bandsaw, stuff like that. All right, so pressure clamps. The next one are these wood clamps. All right, these are kind of old school. There's an entire wall of them over there. I'm gonna turn the computer so you can see. I don't know if you can see them. They're right there. All right, they're all hanging over there. I have all different kinds of sizes. Some are only like this big, some are like this big. The way that these work is you grab both handles, and as you start to spin them, you can see it gets tighter. And if you spin it the other way, they get looser. All right, so these are really good, like all-purpose clamps. We use them for just about everything in here. If you're trying to glue 2 pieces together, you might use the wood clamps to just press them together. If you're trying to get something really, really flat, like 2 boards glued together this way, and they can get kind of out of whack, trying to get them flat, the wood clamps are really good for that. The other thing that's nice about the wood clamps is that they're soft, right? They don't have a harsh metal like teeth on them. So if we put them on wood, it's not going to damage the wood. So we use these all the time in the shop. One thing that you may have seen if you were in the building the last couple of days is I've got a miter saw clamped onto the table, and I actually use the wood clamps. Let's see if I can do this. Right there, right? 2 wood clamps to actually clamp it onto the table. All right, so wood clamps. You may also hear these called carpenter's clamps somewhere out there. All right, so pressure and wood. The next one we have here is like a hand clamp or a pump clamp. I always call it a pump clamp because you pump this handle to tighten it. So you can see it starting to get smaller and smaller. And then there's this lever on the back. If I push down on the lever, I can move it up and down quickly. All right, so these are really good for quick hold. I'm using 2 of them right now. You can see them right there on the bandsaw to hold my scrap board onto the table. All right, we do use these sometimes to hold like glued up parts together. If you can imagine, I've got 2 pieces of wood, right? And I need to make them 1 piece of wood by gluing them together. The pump clamp would go like this around them. All right, so occasionally we do stuff like that. The problem with the pump clamps is that they apply a lot of pressure to the front, but not the back of the clamp. So what can happen is if it's around the 2 boards like this, it'll apply pressure and kind of split them. So they're not the best for that kind of application, but we do use them for that occasionally. They're really just kind of like the pressure clamps, but they can span a bigger gap. All right, so these are called pump clamps, and they're easy to remember because you pump the handle to tighten it. All right, the last clamp and the most useful and important one that we use in here, I think is really easy to remember as well. It's called a bar clamp. All right, it looks like this. And it's easy to remember because there's 2 bars that make up the whole clamp. All right, the way that this works is there is an end. There's 2 ends on this. All right, there's one that looks like this and one that looks like this. All right, this is the bottom part. There's usually 2 like little, I don't know, clickers here. Right, I click them together and I can slide this end back and forth. And then on this side, we have a screw that if I twist it, gets tighter. And if I twist it the other way, it gets looser. All right, these are really useful for gluing those 2 boards together. There's actually some examples over here that I'll show you. This is a nice big flat piece of wood. All right, it's actually made up of like 4 different pieces that are glued together at the seams. And then the bar clamp holds them extremely tight, and the bars actually keep it flat. So really good for that stuff. All right, we got pressure clamp, wood clamp, bar clamp, and pump clamp.